Hello everyone. Today I am going to be showing you how to draw a realistic looking candy ring pop using colored pencils. My name is Sandy Queen and I teach art at Northwestern High School, and Miss Bruce has asked me if I would share with you some of the colored pencil techniques and materials that I use, and I believe she's going to allow you guys to use colored pencil to create a ring pop drawing. So I have my ring pop here, and I am going to be drawing it from both a photograph and from the actual ring pop. Now, she may have you just drawing from the ring pop. That's always best. But I wanted to be able to zoom in and show you some things on here related to the texture and colors and some of the things that I just feel like it would be easier for you to see that way. And so I'm going to be using both. But primarily it is always better to draw from observation, which means that you have the actual object and you become a student of what you are seeing in the moment. And so not normally would I allow my students to use a photograph unless they're going to work on a drawing for multiple days, and a ring pop might not stay looking exactly the same if we leave it out. It might be okay, but certain things wouldn't. So flowers tend to wilt, and sometimes if we have a very complicated setup with a lot of things in it, it's hard to set them back in exactly the same position. But for the ring pop, you should be okay. And what I want to do first is start by sharing with you some of the materials that we're going to use. So I've got kind of a crowded little setup here, but I will go ahead and talk to you about some of the things. So first, I am going to be doing a colored pencil test. And so that is what you see here. And basically what I did was picked out the colored pencils, which you see here, that I felt like were in the range of what I was going to be doing. And so mostly oranges and greens. And also a couple of markers in those same colors. If you don't have the kinds of the brands that I have, that's totally okay. You can use any kind of colored pencil for this, any kind of markers for this, whatever you have on hand. Certainly, if you want to invest in some nice colored pencils, Prismacolors would be my preference. I am trying a new set called Faber-Castell that I ordered because one of the artists that I follow on Instagram who does color pencil uses these. But I don't know if I'm going to like them or not, so we'll see. But I am going to try those. But Prismacolor are good. Any kind of marker. We're not going to use the marker that much. We may lay in a base coat with this, but that is what those are there for. And then you see this little cup right here that looks like it's got water in it. It actually has something called odorless turpentine. And odorless turpentine we can use to kind of blend out. And you can see I've got media on these right now, but I'll try to use the side so you can just see that when I blend into the colored pencil, it like smooths it out. And I'll try to do one with a little bit of less on it and see if I can show you that. So it just smooths everything out, and it's a little trick of mine that I like to use that I got from another artist that I follow. So I follow a lot of color pencil artists because that's how I have learned and taught myself some of the things that I did not know. The other thing you'll see is a gel pen, just a white gel pen. Sometimes for those little bright white highlights that we might see that are really, really tiny, we may need to have a gel pen so that we can get those. And so that's what I am going to use that for. And then, of course, I am on cotton paper, but any kind of paper that Miss Bruce is giving you is going to be fine for you to use. So, to start out, once you've done your test with colors, and what I would do, and the reason that we do a color test is because we want to try coloring down on the actual paper to see what that color is going to look like on the paper, because sometimes if the paper is a different color, like a cream color instead of a white, or it's slightly gray, it might change the way it looks. I am a big fan of, I like to draw on tone papers, gray paper, black paper, and so I always like to do a test and see what it looks like. And it allows me to really, really know what I'm going to do. Sometimes you won't be able to find the color that you need, and you may need to do color tests where you blend two colors. So, for example, I happen to know that there is an orange, kind of red-orange right over here on this section right here. And I have an orange here, and so I'm just going to do a little test and show you. So I'm going to start coloring down a little bit of this orange and kind of fading it. And then I'm going to come from the other side with a red and kind of color into that a little bit. I want it to still be orange, but a red orange. Okay, and then you can just kind of work back and forth with your orange and your red to make that red orange. Now I have a red orange that I'm going to use, which is here, which is going to be close to the color that I just made. Pretty close to the color that I just made. But if you don't have it, you could always make it by blending a couple of colors together. Okay, so that's first, and then we're going to go ahead and start with our drawing. So what we're going to do is first we're going to just draw. Now we're going to I'm making mine kind of small in the interest of time because you don't want to sit here watching me do a really long drawing. But I'm not sure how big you're going to make yours. But depending on how big you are making it, what you're going to want to do first is you're going to want to find out where your highlights and value shapes are. So when we talk about values, what we basically mean are these darks and lights that we see in here, okay? And so it's not uniformly the same value. It's not all the way light or all the way dark. There's a lot of things happening there. And I call those value shapes. So you see this little shape right here that looks light, and you see this little shape right here that looks dark. Those are value shapes. When you start drawing, and I've kind of already gotten the outline here, but when you start drawing, I really would discourage you from drawing with a regular pencil, even if you draw light. And the reason is because that tends to put a little bit of kind of a gray into your color pencil. And it can, what I call muddying it up. So it's always better if you could go ahead and just get in the habit of starting with the same media that you're going to finish with and just draw light until it's right. And so what I'm doing is I am going along and I am looking for shapes that I see with different values. So like there's this dark edge and then kind of this wiggly like shape that comes up and kind of comes down through there. Then I see like a heavy dark line right there that separates the kind of that really light part from that other light part with like a dark line right in between. And it comes up to this line right here. And at the edge of that, there's kind of this wiggly shape that kind of comes over like that. Because it's faceted, which means that it has little flat sides on it, they all kind of look very different. And so I'm just kind of putting those in. Okay. Now, once I have those, I really did all of that just so I could kind of see where any of my white colors are. So there is this really light, almost kind of a mint green shape right in here. And I'm going to go ahead and indicate that it's there. And there are a couple of other very bright highlighted areas that I'm going to kind of lay in a little bit with that first. Because what I'm going to do is I am going to be going into, and I'm putting some white on them to make them lighter. But I am going to be going in with this marker, and this would be a good way to do a drawing if it was going to be really big, is to lay it in with a colored marker in that same color first. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to kind of come in here with my marker, and I'm going to save myself a lot of time. And I am going to Sorry, I have to be on a tilt to color. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of get this all in. So I'm going to turn it on its side and just kind of go lightly over it. I'll still be able to kind of see my lines under there. And I'm kind of going around little areas that I know I want to have little bright white highlights on. I'm going to go around that little shape that I made a minute ago. Okay, and I just basically laid it in. Okay, now I am going to go back in just a minute, and even though it is marker, I am going to go back and kind of put those value shapes that I laid in a second ago. I'm going to kind of put them back with marker. There's that little half moon. There's the edge of that blue. Okay, this is going to be really dark right in here. Okay. All right. Now I'll do the orange part in a minute. Okay. Now I always like to work from extremes. So I like to work on my darkest darks next. And I don't really want to go all the way to the black yet. So I'm going to go ahead and get this dark green here. And I'm looking at this edge over here. And I see a couple little things. Okay. One, I see that is very dark right in here. And it kind of comes up the side here, like so. So I'm going to bring this on up and fade it out, just kind of like it does. And then it comes up and does this kind of wiggly thing coming up into this part right here. And then kind of rides the edge like that. Okay. And then I see that it's dark there, that we've got a dark line separating them. Then we kind of turn and we have a dark area that is a value shape that does a really interesting looking thing right there. And I'm not being real careful about how I'm even shading or coloring, if you want to call it coloring, this in right now. And I'll show you why in a minute, because I've got a little trick up my sleeve and I'm going to show you. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and lay this dark part in. Now it gets really, 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 really dark over here. So I am pressing with a lot of pressure at this point right in here, because it gets so dark. And it does kind of this. So I'm hoping that you can see, and I'll get closer in just a minute. Let me just get some of this done. I'm hoping you can see how those value shapes are kind of working right in there. There's a little dark area there and there. Okay, and there's some other areas, but that's where it starts. Okay, now I am going to get it a little closer so you can see what I'm doing. And I am going to use my turpentine. So this is the little cup that I had a minute ago. And I'm going to come back into these dark areas and kind of smooth them out. And what's going to be cool about this is that I can also use some of the media that I get on here to kind of blend the texture out so that it looks smooth like this does. But I can also dab it around so that those little hits of color are kind of more irregular the way they look. And it just makes it look really realistic when you're doing that kind of thing. So there's a lot of media on here, and I'm just able to keep on kind of going with it and draw with it. Now, one thing you have to kind of know about color pencil is that it is a process of layers. Okay, so now that I've done that, I'm going to go back in, and there were some areas right in here that, I mean, they were black. So they were even darker than the dark green. And so I'm going to start looking for those and throwing those in. And if you are not using a photo, I am using a photo because it's easier for you to see what I am seeing. It would be hard for me to have an angle where you could see what I'm doing at the same time that you're seeing the subject matter, which is what we call it. When whatever we're drawing is called our subject matter. Okay? So I'm kind of going through there, but it would be really hard to do that. So that's why I'm not doing it. That's why I'm not drawing just from observation this time. Okay, and I can smooth that in as well. Get a little bit of that on there. And I mean, sometimes I put it in a couple places that really it doesn't go. But guess what? It is A-okay. All right, now, I want to also have some of this really bright, intense green that I see over here on this corner right there. And so I'm going to grab this kind of almost bluish type green. And I may throw a little yellow in there, but I also see it coming up through the middle here. And I see it flanking that little light part that we had. So I'm just looking now. I'm looking for where is it that the color is changing and looking a little more blue or a little more green. I'm also going to grab this lime color. It's kind of yellow. And come in here and even come to the edge a little bit where it's kind of really glowing. And you can notice that that's happening out here with the shadow too. So I'm going to bring this on out. And I'll actually show you one that I've done in a minute. But I'll bring this on out kind of in a fuzzy way. And it's, you know, it's very, this is a very intense green I have on this ring pop. So I may have to even, you know, look for another color or two that I don't have out right now to really capture it. Okay, so you can see kind of how I'm going there, how it's going, I should say. And you're just going to start working back and forth and laying in those lights and darks. I feel like it gets a lot greener in a couple of places, so I'm going to green it up. And I'm leaving that space there where that orange is going to be. Okay, I'm starting to press kind of hard, and I can go back in at times with my turpentine and, you know, make sure I have my shape looking all the way I want my shape to look. I'm going to come in with some of this black right here on this edge. Resist the urge to just take it all the way to a dark black right off the bat. A lot of people do that, and I feel like sometimes it's really more colorful than they allow it to be. Okay, so you can see how that is. Now, I've got one other thing I want to show you. So when you get to this point, I want you to start to look for some of these little highlights, and you can lay them in with a little bit of a gel pen. Now, this would be the very last step. I'm just going to kind of show you. There's a couple little bubbles over in here. They don't have to be exactly where they are, but like this little glinty white one that's right down here, and you know, some of these that really, really show up. I mean, that's what's really going to make it look like it is a ring pop. Okay, so you start putting those in. So this one is a little farther along. Okay, you can start to see, oops, that I was laying in the shadow over here. And what I did was I used a gray and this green. So I used this and this. And I laid it in kind of in a fuzzy way, like not pressing hard. Because I saw a little bit of like a shadow in here. I'm not sure exactly what that is right there, but that's kind of what it looks like. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish one of these drawings for you to see it. But once I got this in, and a little bit of this kind of blended with it, I used the Q-tip to go in there and smooth it all out. And that's really going to help it look more like a shadow. Because when you can see lines, shadows don't have lines. Shadows are smooth. Okay? So that's what I'm kind of doing. Now the same thing's going to happen with the orange. I'll look for those darker parts and lighter parts. And I'll be putting those in on whichever one. These look very similar. Okay, and I will be, you know, going back and forth with some of the colors I have to do those too. Starting with just kind of, now I could, and I probably will, take this orange and go to the broad side. Let me see where the broad side is. And I probably will lay in just this, you know, this part with this, because I can take it lighter or darker once I get it laid in. Especially if Miss Bruce has you working big. A lot of people don't like to do this. They're afraid of it because they feel like it takes it too quick and makes, you know, and they're like, oh, marker can't erase. And you're right. You got to kind of already have the outline where you want it for that. But what you do, again, with this marker is the goal is not to have it be finished. The goal is to have it on there so that you can go back on it with your darks and your lights and start laying those things in. And yes, you can, you know, turpentine is not going to hurt. Now, you're going to probably want a Q-tip, a clean one, if you're working. Because if I've got green all over this, now I can get some of it off on a piece of paper. Just like rubbing it around. But I don't really want to have that all mixed in there. But I'm going to do these really interesting highlighted areas. I'm going to come back in here with this bright yellow that comes through here. And I'll probably use a little bit of white to make that show. And then come back on it with the yellow. Okay, so there's some things that I'm going to be working on, doing. And then when I am finished, I think I brought that over a little too far, so I may adjust that. It actually needs to be over there. That's what I get for rushing. But when I am finished, what I'll do is show you the picture. I'll send it to Miss Bruce so she can see and show you. Okay, so we're going to be trucking right along, getting it done. Okay, so before I go ahead and switch off, I just want to show you, so I'm going to go to my Instagram here. I have it pulled up. And so color pencil is kind of my thing. So this is a drawing. Oh, it's not really easy to see, is it? I'm sorry. But this is a drawing of some mason jars that I did for my mom. And I know you can't really see that well. I also recently did this huge jar of marbles. It was a really big drawing. Let me see if I can go to it. This is one of my students' works, a dessert. Let's see if I can find my marble drawing. I have my students practice drawing. This is an artist named C.J. Hendry, and she does these colored pencil paint blobs. They're actually not paint, they're colored pencil. She draws them. You can see her drawing it right there. That's her hand. But they look like she is doing it with paint. But this is the drawing that I was doing of marbles and glass. I think that's the finished drawing of it. It's hard for you to see. But anyway, it looks like an x-ray right now, so you're not really able to see it. But I'll send along some pictures to Miss Bruce so she can show you. But that is basically it. So you can do this without turpentine. You honestly, you don't have to have it. You can do it without the gel pen. But these are just some tricks of the trade that I have used and learned kind of by looking at artists that are doing a similar thing and just exploring and experimenting with things. And I really think that you should emulate people that you think do a good job and look at what kind of paper do they use, what kind of pencils do they use. The internet is absolutely full of colored pencil tutorials on there, so you could get on there and find a lot of those, and I think you would, have to kind of look through them, and not all of them are good, but a lot of them are. But I look forward to seeing your drawings. I cannot wait. I know that you'll send me pictures of them, and I will send along a picture of my finished drawing. So I hope you have enjoyed this, and happy drawing.